Other people get reborn with a built-in system and go on to dominate the world, but I got reborn straight into a hell start. I sold my own daughter, my 3 wives hate me to the bone, I don't even have a penny in my pocket, and the whole family is waiting to starve to death. Everyone in the village curses me, saying I deserve it. Without a word, I grabbed the broken hunting rifle my old man left behind and headed into the mountains, where I ran into a 300-pound wild boar charging straight at me. 3 meters away, I almost died on the spot all over again. But it turned out the heavens gave me a cheat. 1 shot, headshot. When I dragged that boar to the village entrance, the jaws of the whole village hit the ground. Don't bite. Gentler. I'm begging you. Why don't you dare act like this with them, You only know how to bully me. I suddenly snapped my eyes open, my head spinning. Looking down, I found a completely naked woman in my arms. Fair skin, beautiful face, but the disgust in her eyes was impossible to hide. Had enough fun? If you've had enough, then get the hell off me. I shuddered, and then a flood of chaotic memories forcibly poured into my brain. I had been reborn, back to Daya Village in 1977, but the next second, I broke down. In my previous life, I was also a boss worth over 100 million. How did I end up reborn into such a useless piece of trash in this life? Eating, drinking, whoring, gambling, smoking. He's got all 5 poisons. Damn, with such a beautiful wife, he still went out fooling around every day? Was the original owner an idiot? Looking at the beauty in my arms, I wanted nothing more than to slap myself. Li Yuxiang's eyes were red as she viciously pinched my chest. Big sister and second sister were right. I should have divorced a scumbag like you long ago. Bang! The courtyard gate was shoved open with great force. My mother, Lu Tsuehua, let out a hysterical wail from outside. Zhang Xiangyang, you damn beast. You traded your 2 own daughters for gambling money? I'm going to beat you to death today. Li Yuxiang, on the Kong, froze for a moment, then violently shoved me away and scrambled to her feet. Huh, I was wondering where you got money to gamble. You even sold Yaya and Dandan? You're truly human trash. She slammed the door and left, leaving me alone in the room. I rubbed my brow. Selling my daughter right at the start? Did this original owner take the criminal code as a guide to getting rich? Taking a deep breath, I began sorting through the memories in my head. Yesterday afternoon, the original owner's gambling addiction flared up, and he couldn't even fish out a single coin from his pocket. While the family was out working their private plot, he coaxed and tricked his 2 daughters, both under 5 years old, and sold them to Lu the Cripple, an old bachelor from the neighboring village, for 10 yuan. That same night, he got caught cheating at gambling and was beaten half to death. He came home covered in injuries, then took out his pent-up frustration on the 3rd wife, Li Yuxiang. Other people can bear children for me and bring me money, so why is your belly so useless? This bastard, while my mother and the other 2 ex-wives were searching the whole village for the children, directly pinned Li Yuxiang down on the Kong and forced himself on her. Holy shit, no wonder a person like this died young. I flipped off the Kong, slipped into my cloth shoes, and ran outside. Since I'd been reborn, I couldn't let this kind of outrageous mess continue. I pushed open the wooden door to the main room and was completely stunned. In the dilapidated earthen courtyard, besides my mother Lu Tsuehua, who was wiping away tears, there stood 3 unbelievably beautiful women. Besides Li Yuxiang, the 3rd wife who had just run out, the other 2 were first ex-wife Lin Xiulan and second ex-wife Su Hongying. I rubbed my bruised eye sockets hard. These 3 women actually looked exactly like the 3 unattainable first loves I had in middle school, high school, and college in my previous life. And now, their identities were actually my ex-wives. My heart started racing. This had to be fate. Not only had heaven let me live again, it had also packaged all the regrets of my previous life and delivered them right in front of me in one go. I'm going to beat you to death, you heartless bastard. Seeing my disheveled appearance, Lu Tsuehua was overwhelmed by old and new grievances alike, grabbed a broom, and started beating me over the head and face. You've squandered all the money. Our family can't even afford a single grain of sorghum now. Will you only be satisfied when the whole family starves to death right in front of you? The broom bristles lashed against my body with a burning sting, but I didn't dodge a single step. Looking at my 3 ex-wives with their sallow faces, and my 2 daughters who were so skinny they were nothing but skin and bones, my heart suddenly clenched in pain. Mom, I'll change. I grabbed the falling broom in one hand, swept my gaze over the women in front of me, and spoke with a firmness I'd never shown before. Don't worry. From now on, I'll make sure all of you get enough to eat. After saying that, I turned and ducked into the ramshackle house with half its roof collapsed. You beast. Seeing me rummaging around like a headless fly, the old lady could barely breathe. There isn't even a single dime left at home. What are you still looking for? The eyes of the three ex-wives instantly filled with despair. Divorced, but still living under the same roof was already a choice born of helplessness in this era. If even this last little shelter from the wind and rain was going to be taken away and traded for gambling money, then all that awaited them was a dead end. Even if it cost me my life today, I'll die together with you. Just as Lu Tsuhua grabbed a kitchen knife and was about to slash at me, I pressed down on her shoulder and came out of the house. A bright smile on my face. Mom, look what I found. Following the direction of my finger, Mom looked over. On the old cotton batting at the bottom of the wooden chest lay a double-barreled old shotgun. There was some dust on the barrels, but the wooden stock was still smooth and glossy. This was the only inheritance left behind by my dead old man. In the yard, the three women all leaned forward at the same time. This was a truly rare item. Making a living in the mountains, a good gun was as good as hard currency. But for a useless good-for-nothing like me, what use could this gun have other than being traded for gambling money? I ignored their looks and sat down on the doorstep, found a rag, and poured out some sewing machine oil. Disassemble, wipe, oil, reassemble. Click. The double barrels snapped shut, and I pushed the chamber into place. The movements were smooth and flowing. I hadn't been a senior member of a shooting club in my previous life for nothing. Watching me clean the gun like I actually knew what I was doing, Lu Tsuhua had some of the anger fade from her face, revealing a bitter smile. Xiangyang, ever since your dad died, you haven't gone up the mountain again. It's been 10 years now. Can you still do it? I raised the gun and aimed with one eye at the crooked neck tree outside the yard, the corner of my mouth curling up. How would I know if I didn't try? Before heading out, I walked up to Lin Xiaolan and Su Hongying, bent down and pinched Yaya's and Dandan's little cheeks. Be good and wait at home for Daddy, okay? I'll stew some meat for you tonight. The two little girls shuddered in fright. Lin Xiaolan and Su Hongying reacted as if facing a great enemy, reflexively pulling their daughters behind them. My hand froze in midair, and I let out a helpless, bitter smile. The original owner had committed too many wrongs and wounded these women's hearts too deeply. Regaining their trust was definitely not something that could happen overnight. I withdrew my hand, turned around, and strode toward the courtyard gate. I had just stepped out of the gate. Stop! Li Yuxiang's voice came from behind me. I stopped and turned back. Biting her lip, Li Yuxiang quickly walked over and stuffed something dark into my hand. It was still warm. It was a roasted sweet potato, not very big, with its skin charred black. Hunting takes strength. She turned her face away and wouldn't look at me. This was the last bite of food left in the house. Don't starve to death in the woods, or we'll have to go collect your corpse. My heart warmed. Don't worry, tonight I'll definitely bring back a wild boar for you. Li Yuxiang froze. The look in this man's eyes had changed. It used to be murky, greedy, and irritable, but now it carried an indescribable sharpness and confidence. Day Village lies against the foothills of the Changbai Mountains. In this era, there was no overdevelopment, so the forest was full of game and full of danger too. I stood at the mountain pass, looking at the primeval forest that blotted out the sky and sun, my brows gradually knitting together. 10 years had passed, and the terrain and animal trails in the forest had long since changed. In my previous life, I was skilled in fighting and shooting, but in these vast mountains, once you got lost, even the best skills were useless. Just as I was worrying, a pale pink cloud suddenly appeared before my eyes. About the size of a fist, it hovered in midair, giving off a soft glow. I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me and rubbed them. It was still there. Not only was it still there, it was pulsing rhythmically in the same spot. I reached out to try and grab it, but the cloud actually leaped forward a big step like a little deer. I was extremely curious. Was this little thing guiding me? In my previous life, what made me an outstanding entrepreneur was my boldness, carefulness, and willingness to think big and act. Let's go? Let's see what this little thing is really up to. After following the cloud for a while, it stopped in front of a thicket. I pushed aside the mugwort that was half a man's height, and a strong, reeking animal odor hit me in the face. Damn, it's a wild boar. I grinned. Not only had heaven let me be reborn, it had even given me such an awesome cheat ability. I slowly lay down and set up the gun. This thing was huge. At a glance, it had to weigh close to 300 gene, and it was grunting as it rooted around for acorns on the ground. Wild boars have thick hide and flesh. With an ordinary homemade shotgun, a body shot would at most break the skin a little. To kill it with one shot, I'd have to find a weak spot. This old smoothbore had poor accuracy, and its effective range topped out at 30 meters. But by following that pink cloud, I was now less than 10 meters from the boar. Simply perfect. I held my breath, jammed the buttstock tightly into my shoulder, and locked the front sight half an inch behind the base of its ear, the junction of the skull and cervical spine, where the nerves are dense. The click of the trigger taking up slack sounded especially harsh in the silent forest. The boar suddenly froze, then jerked up its huge head, its tiny bean-sized eyes locking onto me. A human. A solitary boar has an instinctive hatred of humans carved into its bones. Almost in the very second our eyes met, this nearly 300-gene adult male boar went into full stress response. Hello. With a terrifying howl, it charged at me like an out-of-control heavy armored vehicle. 5 meters. 3 meters. The dark mass had completely engulfed me. At such a short distance, with such horrifying impact, with this body drained hollow, there was no way to dodge this fatal blow. At this critical moment, buzz, the pink cloud that had just disappeared reappeared without warning, instantly turning into a red crosshair that locked tightly onto the boar's left eye. A weak point prompt? Before the thought had even finished forming in my mind, my body had already reacted first. Bang! The recoil of the old shotgun knocked me onto my back. Countless iron pellets poured with perfect accuracy into the boar's left eye. The boar didn't even let out a scream. Carried by inertia, it slid over my head and crashed heavily to the ground with a boom, sending dead leaves flying everywhere. Damn, if it weren't for this cheat ability, I'd have been dead just now. I got up and looked at the boar, nodding in satisfaction. Not bad. If we sell all this meat, wouldn't our family be heading straight for a moderately prosperous life this month? But then a second practical problem presented itself. Deep in the mountains and old forest, and I don't have superhuman strength. How was I supposed to get this nearly 300-gene pig back? I'd have to find someone to help. I've practically become a rat crossing the street in the village. Who would still be willing to help me? Suddenly, the image of someone with messy hair and a silly grin appeared in my mind, and I slapped my thigh. Right. How could I forget him? At the west end of the village, beside a section of abandoned yellow earthen wall, a group of loafers were squatting on the ground cracking sunflower seeds, letting out bursts of laughter. In the middle of the crowd, a man a full 1.9 meters tall was rolling around on the ground with his hands over his head. Beside him stood a sharp-faced young man, clutching a handful of sunflower seeds and shouting loudly, "One more time. Good roll, and Big Brother will buy you sunflower seeds." This kid was called Li Ergu, a well-known hooligan in the village. Really, Big Brother? The man on the ground stopped moving and raised his head, his eyes clear, with a childish innocence that didn't match his build. Really? Hurry up and roll. Li Ergu spat out a sunflower seed shell. The big guy immediately flopped back onto the ground and started rolling again. I stood more than 10 paces away, my gaze turning cold. The one rolling on the ground was called by Taijun. His dad and my dead old man were comrades who had carried guns together. This kid was unbelievably strong. Back when I used to get into fights with people, he would charge in carrying a brick every time. Later, after I got hooked on gambling, his dad was afraid I'd use the fool to do bad things, so he stopped us from seeing each other. Damn it, I was gone for just these 2 years, and this is how you treat my brother. I spat out the foxtail grass I had in my mouth and strode over. Bending down, I grabbed Fool by the back of his collar and, with one hand, forcibly hauled this nearly 180-gene burly man to his feet. Fool by had been rolling enthusiastically, and suddenly being lifted into the air left him a little dazed. When he turned and saw me, he immediately showed a fawning smile. Brother Xiangyang. I reached out and brushed the dry grass bits off his head, then turned around and slapped him. Smack. Li Ergu spun half a circle in place. A vicious look showed in my eyes. Fuck your mother. Go buy sunflower seeds for Fool by. Li Ergu covered his face, his head buzzing, looking full of grievance. Brother Xiangyang, I was just teasing the fool. I stepped forward menacingly. He's already a fool, and you're still fucking teasing him. Isn't a fool there for people to tease? I lifted my foot and kicked him right in the chest. Isn't a fool a person? Wasn't a fool raised by his parents? Does being a fool mean he fucking deserves to be teased by you? Li Ergu shuddered. He knew what I was like, dark-hearted and ruthless, and yesterday, I even sold my own daughter for gambling money. A beast who didn't recognize even his own kin like me might really kill him if pushed too far. Li Ergu quickly lowered his head and bowed. Brother Xiangyang, I was wrong. I'll go buy sunflower seeds right now. Then he ran off scrambling. I turned my head and swept my gaze over the group of loafers under the earthen wall. These people had often followed Li Ergu in bullying Fool by. At this moment, every one of them lowered their heads to stare at their toes, not daring to breathe loudly. I pointed at them. What the fuck are you lot? Petty thieves, punks, chasing lunatics, screwing fools. Is there anything you can't do? No one dared answer. I raised my voice. If any of you dare bully Fool by again, I'll fucking chop you all up. Get the hell out. With one lion's roar, That bunch of loafers scattered like birds and beasts. Fool Bai stood to one side, seeming not to understand what had just happened, looking a little aggrieved. Brother Xiangyang, why did you hit Ergu? He's not buying me sunflower seeds anymore. I sighed and patted the dust off him. From now on, if other people tell you to roll on the ground, don't do it, hear me? But if I roll, I get food. Looking at that silly expression, my heart ached. Your brother has turned over a new leaf. Follow me from now on, and I'll give you meat to eat. Really? I beckoned with my hand. Come on, follow me up the mountain to carry meat back. The moment Fool Bai heard there was meat, his eyes lit up, and he trotted after me eagerly. By the time we reached the mountainside, the smell of blood still hadn't dissipated. When Fool Bai saw that huge black hulking thing on the ground, he jumped in fright. Xiangyang, this pig is so big. It won't bite people, right? It's dead as hell. Bite my ass. I grabbed the wild boar's hind leg to test the weight. Taijun, give me a hand. Bai Shatzi wrapped both hands around the wild boar's two front legs. Hey! With a low roar, he forcibly lifted the front half of the boar. With that kind of strength, it'd be a waste not to train in weightlifting. I didn't go straight home. Instead, I carried the wild boar to Bai Shatzi's house. The Bai family lived at the west end of the village. Half the courtyard wall had collapsed, and it looked even more run-down than my home. I tossed the wild boar into the yard, and it hit the ground with a dull thud. Bai Baoguo was sitting on the doorstep counting his toes. Hearing the noise, he raised his eyelids. After just one look, his expression froze. Bai Baoguo, Bai Shatzi's biological father, had once been a famous hunter just like my old man. He quickly walked over to the wild boar, squatted down, and felt the bullet hole in its neck. Killed with one shot, right behind the ear. He raised his head and fixed me with a sharp stare. You brat shot it. Uncle Bai, I just got lucky, like a blind cat stumbling on a dead mouse. I handed him a cigarette. Bai Baoguo didn't take it. His eyes were full of wariness. My reputation in the village had long gone completely rotten. The story about me selling my daughter for gambling money had spread through the village this very morning. He was poor, but clear-headed. Why'd you bring this thing to my house? His tone was stiff. I don't have money to lend you so you can win it back. I put the cigarette away and looked him straight in the eye. Uncle Bai, I've quit gambling. I can't handle this pig by myself. You're an old hand, so I wanted to ask you to help butcher it. Bai Baoguo sneered. A dog can't stop eating shit. If you, Zhang Xiangyang, could really turn over a new leaf, your father wouldn't have been angered to death. Hurry up and take it away. Don't dirty my yard. Bai Shatzi panicked and tugged on Bai Baoguo's sleeve. Dad, Xiangyang said he'd give me meat to eat. Don't drive him away. Get the hell over there. Bai Baoguo shook off his son's hand and glared at me. What are you fooling this stupid road deer for again? I didn't get angry. If I were him, my attitude would only be worse. Uncle Bai, my dad died early. Before he died, he told me to look after Taijun more. My eyes reddened, my face full of remorse. I was a bastard before. If you help me butcher this pig today, you can pick out 20 gene of good meat to keep. I'll take the rest to exchange for money. There are several mouths at home, still waiting for rice to go in the pot. If you really don't believe me, then my whole family will starve to death. After saying that, I bent down to grab the wild boar's leg. Bai Baoguo stared at me. This kid's eyes were different from before. That slick, shifty air was gone, replaced by an indescribable steadiness. Besides, Taijun cried about being hungry every day, and the little bit of cornmeal at home was nowhere near enough to fill his stomach. Wait, Bai Baoguo spoke up. 10 gene of meat, plus 1 set of pig offal. I smiled. The offal doesn't count. I said 20 gene of good meat, so 20 gene it is. Selling pork. Wild boar meat without a meat ration coupon. The sky had just turned dark when Bai Shatzi's rough voice exploded from the east end of the village. In less than 2 minutes, the courtyard gates of several households opened one after another, and villagers holding big coarse porcelain bowls poked their heads out. There's really meat. It's on that handcart. The crowd quickly gathered around. In those days, everyone was short on fats and oils, and wild boar meat that didn't require a meat ration coupon was far too tempting. Zhang Xiangyang, where did you get the pig? Wang Auntie, the village gossip, widened her eyes. Caught it in the mountains. I stood in front of the handcart, gripping the boning knife. 0.6 yuan per gene, no coupon needed. First come, first served. The crowd instantly erupted. Pork at the supply and marketing cooperative cost 0.75 yuan per gene and still required a coupon. While this wild boar meat was cheaper and didn't need a coupon, it was simply the perfect craving killer. Give me 2 gene. My knife rose and fell. I cut the meat and tossed it onto the scale pan. The scale beam tilted high upward. 2 gene and 1 liang. I'll count it as 2 gene. 1.2 yuan. My movements were swift, and I calculated the bill extremely fast. I want 3 gene. Give me 5 gene. I stood steadily in front of the handcart, cutting meat, weighing it, and collecting money in an orderly way. In my previous life, I managed a company with over 1,000 employees, so handling this kind of small scene was effortless. Li Ergu craned his neck and squeezed in, his eyes darting around as he stared at the meat on the handcart. Brother Xiangyang, you've struck it rich. He edged over, wanting to touch a piece of tenderloin. I wrapped the back of my knife against his hand and knocked it away. Pay if you're buying meat. Tenderloin has less fat, so I'll charge you 0.5 yuan. Li Ergu gave an awkward laugh. Bro, with the relationship we've got, how about letting me buy 2 jin on credit? I lifted my eyelids, my gaze icy. No credit. Get lost. Li Ergu's expression froze. A few of his fair-weather friends were still standing behind him. This was the second time today he'd been publicly humiliated. Zhang Xiangyang, don't reject a favor only to demand more. This wild boar belongs to the collective, and you dare sell it privately for money? Believe it or not, I'll report you to the commune. I put down the knife, stepped out from behind the meat stall, and grabbed his collar, yanking him upward. Go ahead. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried a vicious edge. Let's see whether the commune catches me first, or I kill you first. Don't think I don't know about your cheating at the card table. Keep making trouble, and believe it or not, I'll chop off your paws right now. Li Ergu's face went deathly pale, and his whole body trembled. So I actually knew about him rigging things to cheat me. I let go, and he fell flat on his backside. In less than an hour, more than half the meat on the handcart had been sold. 60 jin remained, and I put away my knife. Not selling anymore. We're keeping the rest to eat ourselves. The villagers who hadn't managed to buy any meat sighed repeatedly, but they also knew I was a reckless bastard, so they could only disperse helplessly. I cut off 20 jin of the fattiest pork belly, along with a set of offal, and placed it in front of Bai Baohua. Uncle Bai, this is the meat I promised you. Bai Baohua puffed on his pipe, looked at the meat, then looked at me. He had been observing the whole time while I was selling meat. This kid settles accounts clearly, cuts meat accurately, and when doing business with neighbors and fellow villagers, he gives a little extra and shows plenty of respect. Could it be this little bastard has really come to his senses? I didn't notice his expression. I was busy counting the money. Great Unity notes, steelworker notes, tractor driver notes, textile worker notes, a thick stack of them. 105.3 yuan. This was the entire income from selling the meat. Bai Baohua had his son carry the meat away, and his tone softened somewhat. Take this money home and hand it to your mother. If I ever see you gambling again, I'll ignore you for the rest of my life. Hee, got it, Uncle Bai. I nodded and revealed a bright smile. Meanwhile, in the Zhang family's small courtyard, wind leaked through the roof of the main room. A kerosene lamp sat on a square table, missing a leg. The wick was turned very low, and the light was dim. 6 large coarse porcelain bowls were set on the table, filled with rice soup, with a few grains of brown rice settled at the bottom. The broth was so clear it could directly reflect a person's face. The family of 6 sat around the table, no one speaking, with only the sound of swallowing rice soup. Yaya put down her bowl. She touched her shrunken belly and looked up at Lin Xiulan. Mom, I'm hungry. Yaya's voice was very soft. Lin Xiulan put down the chopsticks in her hand and reached out to stroke Yaya's dry yellow hair. Good girl, Yaya, Mom will give you this bowl too. Once you've finished, go to sleep. When you're asleep, you won't be hungry. Yaya shook her head. Mom, I heard someone at the village entrance shouting that they were selling meat. I want to eat meat. Lin Xiulan's eyes reddened, and she forced a thin smile. Yaya heard wrong. That was someone selling cloth. Cloth can't be eaten. Auntie is lying. Dandan lifted his little face. I heard it too. It is meat for sale, and wild boar meat that doesn't need ration coupons. As Dandan spoke, she turned to Su Hongying. Mom, I want to eat meat too. Su Hongying put down her bowl, her face icy cold. What meat? There's no meat. Drink the soup. Su Hongying's voice was stern, and Dandan was startled. She shrank her neck back, tears welling in her eyes. Lu Tsuehua let out a heavy sigh. She set down her chipped porcelain bowl, stood up, walked to the earthen stove in the corner, stepped onto a small wooden stool, and reached toward the beam. A blackened clay jar hung from the beam. Lu Tsuehua reached inside and felt out a fist-sized lump of pickles. She hesitated for a moment, but still walked to the cutting board, picked up the kitchen knife, and cut off a thick slice. Seeing this, Lin Xiulan quickly walked over and pressed down Lu Tsuehua's hand. Mom, what are you doing? These pickles are being saved for winter. Su Hongying also stood up. Exactly, Mom, the child was just saying it. You spoil them too much. Just then, with a creak, the wooden door was pulled open. Zhang Xiangyang stepped over the threshold and set the burlap sack on the ground. If the kids want to eat, then let them eat. It's not like we can't afford it. Zhang Xiangyang spoke calmly and pulled over a long bench to sit down. The room fell deathly silent. Lin Xiaolan looked at Zhang Xiangyang, her chest heaving violently. She wanted to curse at him, but after a whole day without a grain of food or a drop of water, she no longer had the strength. Su Hongying turned her head away, not even glancing at him. Li Yuxiang sat on the outside, closest to the sack. She sniffed and caught a strong raw meat smell. She turned to look at the corner by the wall. The mouth of the sack had fallen half open, revealing a large slab of meat with a thick layer of white fat. The dark red lean meat and the gleaming white fat made for a powerful visual impact. Meat? Li Yuxiang's voice turned sharp as she pointed at the sack in the corner. You really caught game? At her words, Lin Xiaolan and Su Hongying both turned their heads at the same time and looked in the direction of Li Yuxiang's finger. Zhang Xiangyang stood up. Walking over to the sack, he untied the hemp rope on top and folded it down with both hands. 40 gene of wild boar meat was revealed, glossy and fresh-looking. The room was so quiet that a pin drop could be heard. Gulp. No one knew who had swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Zhang Xiangyang had long expected this reaction. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a handful of money, and slapped it heavily onto the table. Heh, what did you think? Sizzle. The firewood in the earthen stove was burning fiercely. The moment the thick, solid fat hit the pan, the rich aroma of rendered meat fat exploded through the dilapidated mud house. As the cabbage stems went in, Lin Xiaolan grabbed another 2 handfuls of dried vermicelli and spread them on top, added a ladle of water, and covered the pot with the lid. Hongying, add more firewood. All right. Urged on by the high heat, the bubbling sound of stewing meat rose together with the white steam. It made the whole courtyard seem to come alive. While waiting for the meat, Lu Cuihua looked at the stack of money, hesitated again and again, but still couldn't help speaking up. Xiangyang, this money? Mom, these 50 yuan are for you. Pay back the money we borrowed, and use the rest for household expenses. Before Lu Cuihua could finish speaking, Zhang Xiangyang counted out 5 10-yuan notes and handed them over. Then he divided out 3 more portions and pushed them respectively in front of Lin Xiaolan, Su Hongying, and Li Yuxiang. You 3. 10 yuan each. Keep it to buy yourselves something. My heavens, has the sun risen in the west? Li Yuxiang grabbed that pile of small denomination bills into her hand and looked them over again and again, making sure it wasn't counterfeit money. I thought I'd never get to spend your money in this lifetime. Zhang Xiangyang gave a bitter smile and tucked the remaining 20-odd yuan back into his pocket. I'll keep the rest. I need it. He already had a plan in mind. Their house was too run down, and he wanted to save some money to fix up the old place. Lu Cuihua held the money in her hand, but her brows knitted tighter and tighter. She quickly did the math in her head. Xiangyang, this doesn't add up. You just said that pig was almost 300 gene. Not counting the 40 gene of meat and the big bones you brought back. How did it sell for only 105 yuan? What about the dozens of gene of meat left over and the offal? Did you hide some money? At this point, Lu Cuihua's eyes reddened again. Son, I'm begging you, please don't gamble anymore. Our family really can't withstand you tormenting us like this anymore. Su Hongying mocked mercilessly from the side. Mom, you still expect him to change? A leopard can't change its spots. For all we know, he probably owes someone more gambling debts outside and used the meat to settle them. Faced with Su Hongying's sarcasm, Zhang Xiangyang didn't get angry either. If you've done wrong, you have to pay the price. And only by explaining things clearly can you put your family at ease. He lifted the pot lid and poked at the meat. Mom, you've misunderstood. That wild boar was too big. I couldn't bring it back by myself, and I couldn't butcher it either, so I went to ask Uncle Bai for help. I promised to give him 20 gene of good meat and a set of offal as payment. Huh. Hearing this, Lu Cuihua was stunned for a moment, then nodded with a softened expression. You did the right thing. Your Uncle Bai's family are all good people. When your father was alive, they helped our family a lot. That child Tai Jun is pitiful too. We should help his family more. All right, the meat is tender and ready. Let's eat. You got it. Zhang Xiangyang sprinkled a big handful of chopped scallions into the pot and shouted toward the yard. Yaya. Dandan, stop playing and come home to eat meat. A large basin of pork, napa cabbage, and stewed glass noodles was set on the square table with a missing leg. The cabbage had soaked up the meat juices, the noodles were crystal clear, and the streaky pork belly, half lean and half fat, quivered with a glossy sheen of oil. Beside it was a large basket of freshly made cornmeal flatbreads, golden brown on one side and soft on the other. Yaya and Dandan were already starving. The 2 little girls didn't care whether it was hot or not. Each grabbed a flatbread and stuffed the fatty meat from their bowls into their mouths. Slow down, there's still more in the pot. Looking at this warm, lively, happy family scene, an unprecedented sense of happiness welled up in Zhang Xiangyang's heart. In his previous life, no matter how much money he made, he had never been able to buy the sense of security he felt at this moment. He picked up a piece of meat and put it into Lu Tsuehua's bowl. "Mom, eat more." But Lu Tsuehua picked the meat back out and put it into Yaya's bowl. "I'm old. I'm not used to eating such greasy things. Let the children eat more." Lu Tsuehua held her bowl and only drank the soup and ate cabbage, only eating a piece of meat when she really couldn't refuse. Zhang Xiangyang knew it wasn't that Lu Tsuehua didn't like meat. She just couldn't bear to eat it. Parents are the same in every era. They would rather eat one bite less themselves than let their children go without. Looking at his old mother's graying hair and hollow cheeks, his heart ached. Right. He suddenly remembered that his mom's favorite food was actually fish. He had already forgotten when the family last ate fish. He only remembered that at the time, the original host's father was still alive. Dad and Bai Baohua had spent the whole day working on the river. They only managed to catch 2 carp, each a little over 1 jing. That night, Lu Tsuehua was so happy that she ate 2 extra wodu, and she even drank the fish soup clean. "I'll go take a look by the river tomorrow." Zhang Xiangyang poked at the rice in his bowl, forming a plan in his mind. "Since that pink cloud could help me find wild boars, maybe it can also find schools of fish." After the meal, Zhang Xiangyang took a boning knife and sat on the doorstep. He cleaned the 4 leftover gagala from the meal until they were spotless. Then he rummaged through the room and found a small piece of blue scrap cloth, then went to the kitchen and grabbed a small handful of soybeans. In less than 10 minutes, he had sewn a small square cloth pouch. Yaya and Dandan stood by the Kong, craning their necks to watch him. Although their eyes were full of curiosity, because of the shadow left by the original host trying to sell them before, neither dared to come near. Holding the 4 gagala and the cloth pouch, Zhang Xiangyang walked over and sat by the Kong. "Yaya, Dandan, come here." Zhang Xiangyang beckoned. The 2 little girls were so frightened that they took a step back and pressed tightly against the wall. Zhang Xiangyang didn't force them. He scattered the 4 gagala onto the Kong mat, then tossed the cloth pouch into the air. Taking advantage of the instant the pouch was falling, he quickly flipped the gagala on the Kong with one hand. Then he steadily caught the falling cloth pouch. "Fun, isn't it?" Zhang Xiangyang asked with a smile. Yaya's eyes lit up. Dandan also couldn't help edging 2 steps forward. Zhang Xiangyang handed the cloth pouch to Yaya. "Want to give it a try?" Yaya hesitated for a moment and looked at Lin Xiulan, who was washing dishes. Lin Xiulan dried her hands, walked over, and nodded. Only then did Yaya carefully take the cloth pouch. Copying Zhang Xiangyang, she tossed the pouch upward, then fumbled in a panic to grab the gagala on the Kong. In the end, she failed to grab the gagala, and the cloth pouch also fell onto the Kong. "Oh no." Yaya looked a little annoyed. "It's okay. Your hands need to be quick, and keep your eyes on the pouch." Zhang Xiangyang took Yaya's little hand and taught her hand over hand. Dandan watched from the side with envy and also came closer. "I want to play too," Dandan shouted. "Okay, take turns." Zhang Xiangyang set the gagala back in place. Soon, the clear laughter of the 2 little girls rang out in the room. This laughter had not been heard in the Zhang family's rundown courtyard for a long time. Lin Xiulan, Su Hongying, and Li Yuxiang briskly cleaned up the bowls and chopsticks. The 3 women busied themselves by the stove, occasionally exchanging glances. He really didn't act crazy today. Li Yuxiang lowered her voice and touched the 10 yuan in her pocket. "Who knows how many days this can last?" Su Hongying held a basin of water, her tone still cold. Lin Xiulan said nothing, only looked at Zhang Xiangyang's back in the main room with a complicated expression. The next day, at the first light of dawn, Zhang Xiangyang put on that patched gray cloth jacket and slipped quietly out the door. The fresh scent of grass and trees in the morning air gave Zhang Xiangyang, who was used to smelling car exhaust, an inexplicable sense of comfort. He strolled all the way to the big river bend at the east end of the village. The reason Daya Village is called Daya Village is because of this broad, fast-flowing river. It was said that the river water flowed down from Changbai Mountain, so the water quality here was especially good. Standing on the reed-covered bank, Zhang Xiangyang took a deep breath and concentrated. In his field of vision, specks of pink glow began to appear on the river's surface. There really are fish. He was delighted. But the joy didn't last long. He discovered that in the shallow water near the shore, there were only a few palm-sized pink clouds, dim and lusterless. The truly large clusters, flashing with enticing light, were all gathered in the waters at the center of the river. Those clusters were not only big, they were also darting quickly beneath the surface, trailing streaks of pink light behind them. What the heck was he supposed to do? He couldn't exactly swim over and grab them with his bare hands, could he? Zhang Xiangyang stroked his chin and squatted by the bank, at a loss. He knew how to make bait, and he knew how to chum the water too. In his previous life, he had also loved using live bait and lures. But he only had a little over 20 yuan in his pocket, which was obviously not enough. Besides, in these times, there wasn't even enough grain to eat, and he was supposed to use cornmeal or wheat bran for chumming. Wasn't that utter nonsense? If the villagers saw him, they'd definitely tie him to the crooked neck tree at the entrance of the brigade and hold a struggle session. What should he do? Zhang Xiangyang squatted by the water, stroking his chin. Brother Xiangyang. Brother Xiangyang. Just then, a simple, honest voice called out from behind him. Zhang Xiangyang turned around and saw Bai Shatzi, his hair a messy tangle, running over while panting heavily. Taijun, what are you looking for me for so early in the morning? Zhang Xiangyang stood up and patted the dirt off his hands. I went to your house to look for you, and Auntie said you'd gone out. I've been looking for you for ages. What do you want with me? Zhang Xiangyang took out a cigarette and lit it. Bai Shatzi said, Li Ergu, Wang Changgue, and the others are looking for you. Yesterday they saw you bring down such a huge wild boar, and they're dying for some meat. They said today everyone should go up the mountain together, with you leading the way, and get a few more wild animals back to eat. Zhang Xiangyang let out a puff of bluish smoke and sneered. Go up the mountain as a group? Nice way of putting it. Didn't they just want to reap the benefits without lifting a finger? Yesterday when I was selling meat, every last one of them clutched their pockets and complained it was too expensive. Now that they see me making money, they want to follow behind me and pick up scraps. Do I fucking owe them or something? He had his cheat ability, and the reason he brought Bai Shatzi along was because the guy was strong and good at work, and because the Bai family had shown him kindness. Bring along that pack of ingrates? No chance in hell. Not going. Zhang Xiangyang flicked the ash off his cigarette and refused cleanly and decisively. Not going. Bai Shatzi scratched his head. Li Ergu said that if you don't go, you'll be ruining the village's unity. To hell with that. Zhang Xiangyang cursed. They can't even earn their production teamwork points properly, and they want to go up the damn mountain? Go back and tell them I'm busy today. I'm going fishing. Fishing? Bai Shatzi grinned. Brother Xiangyang, you won't catch anything. Why not? My dad said so. Bai Shatzi seriously mimicked Bai Bao's tone. The current in this big river bend is fast, and there are lots of underwater channels. No matter how much bait you throw in, one wave will wash it all away, and the fish don't stay near the shore. Then what should I do? Zhang Xiangyang asked. My dad said if you want to catch big fish in this river, you have to row a boat to the middle and set a gill net. A gill net? A plan instantly formed in Zhang Xiangyang's mind. Taijun, is that broken wooden boat at your house still there or not? Yeah, it's there, flipped over in the backyard. But it hasn't been in the water for a long time. Let's go? To your house. Zhang Xiangyang threw the cigarette butt to the ground, crushed it out, and pulled Bai Shatzi along as they headed back. The Bai family's courtyard. Bai Baowu was squatting in the yard chopping firewood. Seeing Zhang Xiangyang walk in with his own fool son, Bai Baowu set down the axe, his expression calm. Those 20 gene of wild boar meat last night had indeed let the family enjoy some meat. And his prejudice against Zhang Xiangyang had eased a little, but only a little. Weren't your gang of good-for-nothing friends asking you to go hunting? What are you doing at my house? How could Zhang Xiangyang fail to understand what he meant? He used to be a fine young man known all around the area, but because he made the wrong friends, he became a hoodlum. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been so many good girls desperately wanting to follow him. Since a prodigal son was turning back, he definitely had to cut ties with his old circle of friends quickly and cleanly. Zhang Xiangyang stepped forward, pulled out half a pack of cigarettes from his pocket, took one out, and offered it over. Uncle Bai, I've really turned over a new leaf. I don't associate with them anymore. Bai Baowu didn't take it. He pulled out his own long-stemmed pipe from his waist and unhurriedly packed it with tobacco. Seeing that Bai Baowu hadn't taken the cigarette, but also hadn't driven him away, Zhang Xiangyang shamelessly edged closer again. Uncle Bai, I'd like to borrow the boat in your backyard for a bit. Bai Baowu paused in the middle of lighting his pipe. He looked up and fixed Zhang Xiangyang with a sharp gaze. Borrow the boat? Going to the big river bend? Yes, to set a gill net in the middle of the river. No. Bai Baowu refused cleanly and decisively. He struck a match, lit the tobacco, and took a hard drag. Do you know how swift the water in the big river bend is? It's full of hidden channels and whirlpools underneath. No matter how good a swimmer is, if they fall in, they won't come back up. With your little frame, going there is just seeking death. Uncle Bai, I'll only set the net where the current is slow and won't go into deep water. Still not lending it. The bottom planks of the boat are already badly rotted and leak. If you drown, I won't be able to answer to your mother. Bai Baowu tapped the bowl of his pipe and turned to go carry firewood. Zhang Xiangyang didn't move. He lit a cigarette too, his voice low. Uncle Bai, my mother didn't bear to eat a single bite of that wild boar meat last night. Bai Bao's steps halted. She only drank the soup and gave all the meat to Yaya and Dandan. Zhang Xiangyang looked at Bai Bao's back. You know what my mother is like, always having a hard life, saving all the good things for the younger ones. You also know my mother loves fish most. But since my father died, let alone fish, my mother hasn't even had a bowl of fish soup. The courtyard fell utterly silent. Zhang Xiangyang took another drag on his cigarette. I used to be a beast, doing things no decent person would do. Now I want to learn to be good, and I want my mother to have a good meal. I can't manage anything else, so I just want to go to the river and catch her a fish. Uncle Bai, just take pity on my mother. Bai Baowu turned around and looked at Zhang Xiangyang, a trace of complicated emotion flashing in his eyes. Lu Tsuhua was a woman with a bitter fate, and no one knew that better than Bai Baowu. Back then, his old comrade in arms passed away early, leaving behind such a bastard of a son. Bai Baowu had seen all the suffering Lu Tsuhua had endured over the years. If the old Zhang Xiangyang had said this, Bai Baowu definitely would have slapped him hard across the face. But today, looking at this young man before him who seemed to have truly been reborn, he hesitated. Sigh. He let out a long sigh and tucked the long-stemmed pipe back into his waist. You brat, you've finally learned a bit of humanity. Taijun, Bai Baowu called out. Hey, Dad. Bai the fool quickly ran over. Go to the backyard, turn the boat over, and check the bottom planks. Take some tung oil and rags and plug the leaking spots tight, Bai Baowu instructed. All right. Bai the fool happily ran toward the backyard. Bai Baowu turned to look at Zhang Xiangyang, his expression still stern. Let Taijun go with you. He knows how to handle that boat. But I have one condition. Uncle Bai, go ahead. Don't panic, don't rush. If the net is lost, then it's lost. If the boat sinks, then it sinks. But you people must come back to me safe and sound, every last piece of you. Got it. Looking at this man who seemed cold on the outside but warm-hearted within, Zhang Xiangyang felt a surge of emotion. He nodded and said, Uncle Bai, don't worry. Splash, plop. The moment he got on the boat, Zhang Xiangyang froze. He rubbed his eyes hard and found that on the water's surface, which had originally been full of hidden surging waves, besides those flickering pink clusters, there were unexpectedly also pale blue lines. These blue lines wound and twisted along the direction of the current, like a precise nautical chart. Cleverly avoiding the hidden reefs and swift currents beneath the surface, it pointed straight toward the part of the river where the fish were most densely packed. Holy shit, this cheatability is damn considerate. Zhang Xiangyang was overjoyed. He had originally been worried that this big river bend had fast currents and deep channels, making it dangerous, but now with these blue lines showing the way, it was practically like walking on flat ground. He immediately turned and started giving orders. Taijun, listen to my command. Paddle twice on the left. That's right, steady. Drift forward along this current. The old northeastern boatman called the little wooden boat the two of them were sitting in a weihu, though some also called it a kwaimatsi. The boat had a distinctive shape, long and spindle-like, with both ends pointed and slightly upturned, a narrow body, a flat bottom, and not even a canopy. This kind of boat had a shallow draft and moved fast, but it had one flaw. It rocked like crazy, and if you weren't careful, it could flip completely over in an instant. Although Bai Taijun had the mind of a child, he had grown up by the water since childhood and was an excellent swimmer, as well as highly skilled at rowing. Hearing Zhang Xiangyang's words, he put strength into both arms, and the wooden oar flashed through the water. And the little boat, like a nimble loach, steadily followed the guidance of the blue lines and passed through several dangerous hidden channels. Here, the pink air clusters beneath the water's surface were packed densely together, looking almost like a pot of boiling soup. Taijun, here, cast the net. Zhang Xiangyang lowered his voice, his eyes shining with excitement. All right. Bai Taijun stood up, clutching the large mesh gill net in his hands, and gave his arms a powerful shake. The fishing net traced a beautiful arc through the air and, with a swish, landed precisely in the area where the pink air clusters were densest. Brother Xiangyang, it's heavy, really heavy. Bai Taijun clutched the rope of the net tightly with both hands, grinning from ear to ear. Pull slowly, don't let the net burst. Zhang Xiangyang hurried forward to help. As the fishing net was slowly hauled out of the water, the silver-white fish scales flashed with a dazzling brilliance in the sunlight. Good lord, with this one cast, it was like they'd stabbed right into the Dragon King's fish basket. Mandarin fish, carp, fine-scaled fish, all kinds of plump big fish struggled desperately in the net, splashing water all over the two of them. We're rich, we're rich. Zhang Xiangyang quickly dumped the fish into the hull, then pointed to a dense patch of pink air clusters more than 10 meters ahead to the right. Taijun, over there, one more cast. By Taijun was full of energy. With a push of the wooden oar, the little boat moved over. One cast of the net, and when they pulled it back up, it was another bulging, brimming haul. In less than half an hour, the tiny Weihu was already carpeted with a thick layer of fish, at least 20 or 30 jin. Fool Bai looked at so many fish, and his mouth was practically watering. Just as Zhang Xiangyang felt it was about enough, and was preparing to stop and head home so his mother could stew some fish, his gaze was suddenly locked tight onto a strange patch of color deep under the water. It wasn't pink, but a blazing red air cluster, intense as fire. This red aura was astonishingly large, lurking motionless in a deep pit at the bottom of the river, just like that wild boar from before. Instinct told Zhang Xiangyang that there was definitely something huge down there. Taijun, don't rest, move the boat farther forward. Zhang Xiangyang pointed ahead and took a deep breath. Personally grabbed the big net and hurled it hard at the spot where that red aura was. The moment the net hit bottom, the previously calm surface of the water suddenly exploded with a huge splash. Immediately after, the rope of the net went taut in an instant, letting out a creaking sound. The tiny Weihu was yanked sharply to one side by this sudden tremendous force, and Zhang Xiangyang's footing slipped. He nearly toppled headfirst into the rapids. Fuck! What the hell is this thing? Zhang Xiangyang clung tightly to the net rope, his hands aching from the rough hemp rope cutting into them. Brother Xiangyang, I'm coming. Seeing this, Bai Taijun hurriedly lunged over and grabbed the net rope with one hand. But even this foolish kid, born with immense strength, had veins bulging on his forehead by now. No, let go of the rope, quick. Let go. Zhang Xiangyang shouted violently. Bai the fool froze for a moment, but his body still instinctively obeyed the order. The taut net rope instantly slid out 2 meters. The Weihu, which had been listing badly, suddenly righted itself and slammed heavily onto the water, splashing up spray half a man's height. Taking advantage of the moment, Zhang Xiangyang lowered his center of gravity and gripped the end of the net rope tightly with both hands. Brother Xiangyang, it's getting away. Bai the fool shouted anxiously. It won't get away. This is a big one. If we haul hard, the boat will capsize. We have to play it. Zhang Xiangyang stared fixedly at the water's surface. His experience from sea fishing in his previous life told him that the more it was like this, the calmer he had to be. That mass of red chi was crashing around wildly underwater at incredible speed. Zhang Xiangyang felt the force transmitted through the net rope, sometimes slack, sometimes taut. When the fish exerted force, he let out rope. When the fish was exhausted, he pulled it back hand over hand. One man and one fish began a tug of war in the rushing river bend. Taijun, get the oar. Control the boat with the current. Don't let the rope get tangled on the submerged reefs. Hey, got it. Bai the fool didn't understand how to play a fish, but he was obedient. Left, right. Zhang Xiangyang kept his eyes on the pale blue safe route underwater, constantly giving instructions. 10 minutes passed. The red mass of chi underwater finally began to slow down. It's out of strength, pull. Zhang Xiangyang growled in a low voice. The two of them exerted force at the same time, hauling the net rope out of the water inch by inch. Splash! The river surface suddenly split open, and a huge dark red figure thrashed out of the water. Fuck! Zhang Xiangyang couldn't help cursing. It was a giant fish of exaggerated size. Its whole body was dark red, its back covered with blackish-brown spots, and its head was broad, with a protruding lower jaw and a mouth full of dense, sharp teeth. A taimen. In northeast China, it's commonly called the big red fish. This thing is the overlord among cold water fish, ferocious in temperament, and its flesh is extremely delicious. In this era, it was definitely a rare treasure. Brother Xiangyang, a taimen, a huge taimen. In all his years of life, this was also the first time Bai the fool had ever seen such a big fish. It weighed at least 40 jin by eye. Seeing that it was still thrashing desperately, Bai Taijun quickly edged over to help. Don't touch its mouth. It bites. Zhang Xiangyang warned. Working together, the two finally dragged the big taimen into the cabin. Bang! The giant fish slammed onto the bottom boards of the boat, and with one flick of its tail, the little boat rocked violently. Huff! Zhang Xiangyang collapsed onto the deck with a thud, gasping for breath. His clothes had long since been soaked through with river water and sweat. Bai the fool squatted beside him and grinned broadly. Brother Xiangyang, this fish is really big, enough to eat for several days. Eat it. Why are you so wasteful? Zhang Xiangyang wanted to smoke a cigarette, only to find that both the cigarettes and matches were soaked through. These fish weigh at least over 70 jin altogether. If we sell them, Won't it be better for the two of us to trade them for money and buy meat buns to eat? At the mention of meat buns, the fool was practically drooling. Okay, sell the fish. Sell the fish. I want to eat buns. After returning to the village entrance, Zhang Xiangyang didn't go straight home. Instead, he carried the two fattest carp and went directly to old Li's house at the east end of the village, the one who drove the horse cart. Big time-in are a rare item. This kind of thing simply wouldn't fetch a good price in the village. He wanted to borrow a mule cart and go into the city to sell the fish. As soon as old Li saw those two lively, flopping carp, he was delighted inside. Without another word, he lent him the cart. On the dirt road to the county seat, Taijun cracked the whip as he turned back and asked, "Brother Xiangyang, who are we going to sell to in the city? We don't know anyone there. If they die on the way there and back, won't it all be for nothing?" Zhang Xiangyang sat in the back of the cart, using a broken water ladle to splash water over the fish in the wooden barrel to keep them oxygenated. He looked up at the pale blue line that only he could see, his tone firm. "Don't worry, brother will definitely help you find a big client." The mule cart rattled its way into the county town, but as soon as they passed under the archway, Zhang Xiangyang was dumbfounded. The originally straight blue line suddenly exploded into 7 or 8 branches at the crossroad. One to the east, one to the west, all pointing in different directions. Good grief, looks like quite a few work units in the city are short on meat. Helpless, Zhang Xiangyang could only pick the nearest route first, and had Taijun drive the cart into a secluded alley. At the end of the alley was the back door of the state-owned No. 2 canteen. A fat cook in a greasy white apron was squatting on the steps smoking. Zhang Xiangyang jumped down from the cart and lifted the barrel lid. "Sir, want some fish?" The fat cook didn't even raise his eyelids. "What kind of fish?" "Mixed fish, 0.15 per gene. Big ones, 0.20. Zhang Xiangyang didn't waste words. He reached into the barrel and directly lifted the time-in halfway out of the water. The fat cook's eyes lit up instantly. He tossed away his cigarette butt and sprang to his feet. "Yo, time-in, that's good stuff. But inspections are strict right now, so I can give you at most 0.50 per gene. How about 0.20 for the mixed fish?" 0.50. Zhang Xiangyang threw the fish back into the barrel, covered it with the straw mat, turned around, and left. "At that price, you might as well be robbing me." It's only because he'd reformed now. If it were before, his size, 43 Bigfoot would already have smacked that size, 50 face of his. "Hey, don't go. 0.55. Can't go any higher," the fat cook shouted from behind. Zhang Xiangyang didn't even turn his head, just grabbed the mule and left. Back on the main street, Zhang Xiangyang started mulling it over. This blue line only finds buyers, but doesn't care whether the price is high or low. If they had to go door to door, the fish would die halfway there. So what the hell would be left to sell? Could it be that this route map can't distinguish between high, medium, and low grades? Just as Zhang Xiangyang was secretly worrying, Taijun drove the mule cart to a place called Ingchun Restaurant. At the back courtyard gate stood a gaunt middle-aged man directing 2 apprentices unloading cabbages. Zhang Xiangyang took a closer look and saw that above the gaunt man's head was actually a semi-transparent progress bar floating there. The bar was filled with green light, taking up about 50% of the total length. What does this mean? Zhang Xiangyang walked over cautiously and offered him a cigarette. "Boss, do you buy wild fish?" "Time-in." The gaunt man took the cigarette and glanced at the wooden barrel on the cart, then sucked in a cold breath. "Good lord, that's really not small. How much are you planning to sell it for?" Zhang Xiangyang probed. "You name a price." 0.70. The gaunt man named a number, his eyes flickering. Zhang Xiangyang stared at the progress bar above his head. No movement, still 50%. "Oh, wild fish. Let me take a look." Just then, a fat man pushing a bicycle came over. Zhang Xiangyang turned his head. This fat man also had a progress bar above his head, also at 50%. The fat man looked the fish over top to bottom, then glanced at the skinny man beside him and gave a sly grin. "Buddy, I'm the buyer for Hongxing Restaurant up ahead. I want this fish, and I can offer 0.84. The moment he finished speaking, the progress bar above the fat man's head shot upward and stopped at 60%. Zhang Xiangyang's head buzzed, and he understood everything instantly. The progress bar probably represented the upper price limit. If 60% was 0.84, then 100% would be 1.40. These bastards are really black-hearted. Zhang Xiangyang calmly put the lid back on the bucket. "Gentlemen, fish over 40 gene are hard to come by, and this one is still lively and kicking. The price you're offering isn't even enough for us 2 brothers risking our lives." Taijun quickly chimed in. "Exactly. For this giant time-in, Brother Xiangyang, nearly drowned in the river. The gaunt man frowned. Then how much do you want? Zhang Xiangyang raised his thumb and index finger in the shape of an 8. 1.8. No ration coupons. Not a cent less. As soon as he said that, both men were stunned. The gaunt man sneered. Brother, are you crazy from poverty? Even the supply and marketing cooperative doesn't charge that price. The fat man also shook his head. 1.8 is way too outrageous. Let's stop arguing, oldly. We'll split this fish half and half, at 0.84. He can sell it or not. The two exchanged a look and reached a tacit understanding, wanting to join forces and pressure him into lowering the price with cold shoulder tactics. Zhang Xiangyang didn't take the bait at all. He turned and called to Bai Taijun. Taijun, let's go to the county committee guest house. When the two heard county committee guest house, their expressions changed slightly. That was the most expensive place in the entire county town. If you had strong connections, you really might be able to sell it for more than 1 yuan. 1.8 is indeed too expensive, little brother. Don't listen to those two trying to fool you. I'll give you a fair price, 1.3, and I'll take the whole lot. Just then, a loud voice came from the entrance of the alley. A flat-headed middle-aged man in a gray Zhongshan suit, carrying a faux leather briefcase, walked over. The gaunt man and the fat man both hurriedly put on flattering smiles and greeted him. Oh, Director Zhao. Director Zhao ignored them and walked straight to the cart, lifted the straw curtain, and glanced at the fish in the bucket, then nodded in satisfaction. Zhang Xiangyang looked at the progress bar above Director Zhao's head, 99%. Brother, I'm the procurement director of the #1 guest house. People from the province are coming today, and we're just short one impressive main dish. I'll take this giant time in at 1.3, but on one condition. Go ahead. As for the rest of the mixed fish, no matter what they are, 0.4 per gene, leave them all to me. What do you think? Zhang Xiangyang quickly did the math in his head. The time in weighed 40 gene. At 1.3, that came to 52 yuan. The mixed fish weighed 70 gene. At 0.4, that came to 28 yuan. Carp usually sold for only 0.25, and species like Ao Hua were a bit more expensive, but only by so much. 0.4 was indeed a fair price. Deal. Zhang Xiangyang answered crisply. He followed Director Zhao to the guest house kitchen. They weighed the fish and settled the bill. The time in came to 42 gene, and the mixed fish 75 gene. The total came to 84.6 yuan. Director Zhao counted out 8 great unity bills, 2 2-yuan bills, and a pile of small denomination notes, then handed them to Zhang Xiangyang. Without counting, Zhang Xiangyang directly pulled out the 8 great unity bills and slipped them into his pocket. As for the remaining 4 yuan and the pile of small notes, he pushed them back together with Director Zhao's hand. Brother Zhao, keep the change and buy yourself a pack of cigarettes. Zhang Xiangyang's tone was natural, as if what he had pushed back were not a few yuan, but a scrap of waste paper. Director Zhao was taken aback at first, then his gaze swept across Zhang Xiangyang's face. In those days, when rural people came into the city to sell a few things, they wished they could split a single cent in half. Yet this kid in front of him, though covered in patches, handled things like an old hand who had worked the social scene for years. Director Zhao burst into laughter. Little brother, straightforward. He reached back and patted Zhang Xiangyang on the shoulder, his tone much warmer now. If you have fish in the future, bring them straight to me. As long as it's wild caught, I'll take it all. You got it. I'll definitely be troubling you again in the future, Brother Zhao. Zhang Xiangyang took the opportunity to step half a pace closer and lowered his voice. Brother Zhao, the money and the goods are easy enough to deal with. It's just... Zhao Dehua looked at him in confusion, not even daring to put the money in his pocket. Brother Zhao, it's not really a big deal. Zhang Xiangyang gave a sly grin. You know how it is with village folks. Plenty of them are jealous. Do you think you could issue a purchase receipt? So no one can make a fuss back home and accuse us of profiteering and speculation. Ha ha ha. Sure, I wondered what it was. Zhao Dehua stuffed the money into his pocket and pointed at Zhang Xiangyang with a smile. You kid, you're really meticulous. With a few quick strokes, he handed over a slip stamped with the red seal of the county committee guest house kitchen. Zhang Xiangyang folded it carefully and tucked it into the inner pocket of his undershirt. At a critical moment, this thing was like a get-out-of-jail-free card. After Director Zhao left, Zhang Xiangyang pulled 4 10-yuan notes from his pocket and shoved them straight into Bai Taijun's arms. Brother Xiangyang, what are you doing? Bai Taijun jumped in fright and tried to push them back out as if the money were burning his hands. Take it. This is what you earned through your labor. I don't want it. I was just lending a hand. How could I take that much money? If I tell you to take it, then take it. Zhang Xiangyang's face darkened. If you don't take it, I won't bring you along anymore. Although Bai Tiejuan's intelligence would forever remain at the level of an 8 or 9-year-old, he still had his own sense of right and wrong. Having lived a second life, Zhang Xiangyang had to be worthy of being called Big Brother by his foolish little brother. Seeing that Brother Xiangyang was really angry, Fool Bai didn't dare refuse anymore. He clenched the money tightly, grinning so wide that even snot bubbles came out. This was 40 yuan. That was equivalent to half a year's work points for him in the village. After dividing up the money, Zhang Xiangyang didn't hurry back to the village. Since it was rare for him to get into town and he had money in his pocket, he couldn't very well go back empty-handed. He took Bai Taijun to the supply and marketing cooperative first. He bought 2 jean of white rabbit milk candy and also weighed out some salt, soy sauce, and spices. Passing by the state-run restaurant, he spent money on 10 piping hot meat buns. After that, he had Bai Taijun watch the cart at the entrance of the alley while he himself plunged into the whole market in the south of the city. In those days, you needed ration coupons to buy cloth and cotton. Zhang Xiangyang didn't have any coupons, so he could only go to the black market to find a scalper. After a round of haggling, he paid the steep price of 60 yuan to get 8 jean of new cotton and 60 chi of coarse cloth. By the time he returned to the mule cart, Zhang Xiangyang only had a few small notes left in his pocket. Let's go home. On the dirt road, the mule cart swayed along leisurely. Bai Taijun was cracking the whip with one hand and holding a big meat bun with the other, eating until his mouth was greasy. Brother Xiangyang, this bun is really fragrant. Bai Taijun swallowed the meat in his mouth, then patted his chest. When we get back, I'll give this money to my dad. I won't spend it recklessly. Leaning against the cloth bundle, Zhang Xiangyang also took a bite of his bun. Don't spend it recklessly. My dad used to curse you at home all the time, saying you were a bastard, that you squandered money, and wouldn't let me play with you. Bai Taijun smiled foolishly. Brother Xiangyang, even though I'm dumb, I still know right from wrong. Money is a bastard, nice to look at but not easy to earn. Zhang Xiangyang paused and looked at the endless mountains in the distance, letting out a self-mocking bitter laugh. Yeah, I'm dumb. I had a good life and didn't know how to live it well. I'm really not even as good as a fool. By the time they returned to Daya village, dusk had already fallen. Zhang Xiangyang pushed open the gate to his dilapidated courtyard and carried things into the house trip after trip. Lu Tsuhua, Lin Xiulan, Su Hongying, and Li Yuxiang were gathered around the stove cooking brown rice porridge. Thud! Zhang Xiangyang set the heavy sack on the table, then carried in the fish basket. Inside were 3 big fish weighing more than 3 jean each that Zhang Xiangyang hadn't sold. These were for his mother to stew. Mom, I brought the fish back. 3 big carp, whole and intact. The room fell silent in an instant. Lu Tsuehua looked at the lively, flopping fish in the basket, her lips trembling non-stop. She couldn't believe the scene before her eyes. Yaya, Dandan, come here. Zhang Xiangyang crouched down. Look what Dad brought back for you. He opened his coat pocket, and a whole jean of white rabbit milk candy appeared just like that. Wow. The 2 little girls' eyes instantly lit up. No longer afraid of him, they ran over on their short little legs, each grabbed a handful, and happily sat on the doorstep eating. Eat less candy, we're stewing fish tonight. Zhang Xiangyang muttered, but his hands didn't stop. He untied the sack on his back and took things out one by one. Big meat buns, loose soy sauce, loose vinegar, Sichuan peppercorns, star anise, big chunks of salt. Finally, he untied the huge cloth bundle. Snow-white cotton was revealed, and beside it were 2 neatly folded bolts of fabric. One bolt was dark blue, and the other was floral dacron. This, Li Yuxiang's eyes widened, and her breathing grew rapid. Winter was coming soon, and the family's old cotton-padded jackets were no longer good enough. Zhang Xiangyang said calmly, I bought 8 jean of cotton and 60 chi of cloth. Mom, sorry to trouble you. Make everyone a few new outfits. Lin Xiulan stepped forward, her fingers trembling as she touched the floral fabric. Smooth and slippery, so pretty. She couldn't even remember how many years it had been since she'd worn new clothes. Su Hongying stood where she was, biting her lower lip hard, staring at Zhang Xiangyang with a complicated look in her eyes. This? How much did this all cost? Lu Tsuehua looked at the pile of things on the table, her hands trembling. Not much. Zhang Xiangyang pulled over a long bench and sat down, picked up the big teapot on the table, and took a huge gulp. The cotton and cloth cost 60. The white rabbit candy and meat buns were a bit over 2, plus the salt and soy sauce. All told, it was less than 70 yuan. The room instantly fell deathly silent. 70 yuan. These days, if a strong laborer worked the fields all year and got 70 yuan in dividends at the end of the year, that would already count as a good year. Where did you get so much money? Su Hongying's voice changed pitch. She was afraid Zhang Xiangyang had gone gambling again. Zhang Xiangyang put down the bowl and pulled out the remaining small bills from his pocket. Today we went to Dai Tatsi. Taijun and I got a time in weighing over 40 jin, and along with dozens of jin of mixed fish, we sold them all for 80 yuan. We split it half and half. The women stared at the money on the table, their eyes practically frozen. More than 80 in one day? Li Yuxiang swallowed hard and couldn't speak for a long while. Lin Xiaolan lowered her head, tears falling patter-patter. This time it wasn't from grievance, but because she truly saw hope for survival. Lu Tsuohua walked trembling to the table, her skinny, bony hands stroking the fabric as she began to calculate. One outfit for Xiaolan, one for Hongying, one for Yuxiang. Yaya and Dandan are small, so they won't need much. As for this old bag of bones, I'll make do. If I card the old cotton again, I can still wear it. As Lu Tsuehua calculated, she suddenly stopped. She raised her head and looked at Zhang Xiangyang. Xiangyang, the amount of this cloth. There's none for you? That one sentence left the three women in the room stunned at the same time. Lin Xiaolan suddenly turned her head. Su Hongying's gaze also instantly fixed on Zhang Xiangyang. 60 chi of cloth was just enough to make one set of winter clothes for 3 adults and 2 children. If Zhang Xiangyang, this sturdy man over 1.8 meters tall, were included, it definitely wouldn't be enough. He had counted everyone, but he alone had left himself out. Zhang Xiangyang was stunned too. Wasn't that the truth? When he was doing the math, he really had forgotten about himself. However, he just smiled indifferently. I'm not cold, I run hot. If you give me the old cotton from the clothes you change out of, I can have it recarded and wear it just the same. Everyone looked at him in astonishment. Is this still that loafer who only knew how to steal chickens and dogs and sell his daughter for gambling money? Why? Why are you all looking at me? Did I not wash my face clean? Just as Zhang Xiangyang was about to grab a basin to wash his face. Bang, bang, bang. A burst of urgent knocking came from outside the door. Who is it? Coming. Li Yuxiang quickly signaled the daughters-in-law at home to put away the things on the table. These days, not flaunting your wealth is an iron rule. Zhang Xiangyang stood up, walked into the yard, and pulled open the door bolt. Standing outside was Bai Baohua. His face was tense as he strode into the yard. Uncle Bai, what brings you here? Have you eaten? We've got fish stewing at home. Zhang Xiangyang followed behind him. Bai Baohua ignored him and instead called out to Lu Tsuehua. Sister-in-law, hurry up and do something about your son. The moment those words came out, everyone was startled. Zhang Xiangyang had just said that he took Taijun fishing all day. Could it be that he lied to us again? Lu Tsuehua quickly moved a stool over for him. Old Bai, don't be anxious. Sit down and tell us slowly. If my son did anything wrong, I'll deal with him for you. Oh no. No. Bai Baohua swallowed and pulled 40 yuan out of his pocket, slapping it onto the table with a clatter. This kid Xiangyang really doesn't treat money as money at all. Bai Baohua stared with wide eyes as if he didn't even know this boy anymore. That silly kid Taijun doesn't know a damn thing. You just want to row a bit and lend a hand. How could he take your 40 yuan? Our family can't take this money. Old sister-in-law, hurry and have your son take it back. When the women in the room saw that this was the matter, they all breathed a sigh of relief. Lu Tsuehua stood up, poured a bowl of hot water, and handed it over. Brother, Xiangyang already told us. Taijun helped him a lot, so this money should be given. Sister-in-law, one thing is one thing. Bai Baohua didn't take the water and pointed at the money, saying, going to fish in the river bend was his idea, and he cast the net. Taijun only rowed the boat a couple of times. How is that worth 40 yuan? If I take this money, how am I supposed to hold my head up in the village in the future? Bai Baohua was a principled man. He was happy that his old comrade's son had suddenly become sensible. But this windfall felt too hot to handle. Zhang Xiangyang smiled. He walked over and pushed the money back in front of Bai Baohua. Uncle Bai, listen to what you're saying. That big time in was over 40 jin. If it weren't for Tiejuan's arm strength keeping the boat steady, the two of us would have fed the turtles long ago. Half this money is payment for his labor, and half is payment for risking his life. If you don't take it, then if I have a way to make money in the future, I won't dare ask Taijun again. You. Bai Baohua was left speechless. At this moment, Lin Xiaolan also spoke gently. Uncle Bai, Xiangyang is right. Back when our family couldn't even make ends meet, you helped us out a lot. Now that Xiangyang has made something of himself, it's only right for him to help Taijun along too. If you won't take it, then you're still treating Xiangyang like an outsider. Su Hongying also chimed in for once from the side. That's right, Uncle Bai. He owes you so much already. What does this little bit of money amount to? Li Yuxiang was even more direct, grabbing the money and stuffing it into Bai Baohua's pocket. Uncle Bai, just take it. Xiangyang must have his reasons for doing this. With the whole family taking turns to persuade him, Bai Bao's weather-beaten face flushed red. He let out a sigh and rubbed his hands twice on his clothes, then pressed down on the money in his pocket. Sigh, fine, I'll hold on to this money for Taijun. Bai Bao was stopped refusing and tucked the money into his chest pocket. But country folk care most about practicalities, about give and take. Having taken such a large sum of money, Bai Bao was still felt indebted. He looked up at Zhang Xiangyang. Xiangyang, since you're walking the straight path now, your uncle won't stand on ceremony with you. Winter is about to set in, and the wild animals in the mountains are all fattening up for the season. I know of an old den deep in the mountains, a great spot for hunting. But that place is dangerous. I can't handle it alone. That boy Taijun is all brute strength and no brains, so he's no real help. If you trust me, after dinner grab that old foreign-style musket your father left behind and come into the mountains with me. Let's go bag something big. Zhang Xiangyang understood perfectly well in his heart, knowing that Bai Baoguo was repaying the favor in his own way and also taking him along to make some extra money. With an opportunity like this, of course he was in. Sure, Uncle Bai? Being able to go into the mountains with an old hand like you is my good fortune. I'll come find you right after dinner. As soon as they heard Zhang Xiangyang was going into the deep mountains to hunt, the several women in the room immediately became uneasy. Into the deep mountains? How dangerous would that be in the middle of the night? Lin Xiulan's eyes were full of worry. Although Su Hongying kept a stern face, she still couldn't help adding, the night wind in the mountains is cold. If you go in that thin jacket, you'll freeze to death in there for sure. Mom, find that old sheepskin coat Dad used to wear and get it out for him. Li Yuxiang was even more straightforward, turning and heading straight for the inner room. I'll go find his leg wraps. There are lots of ticks in the mountains, and a bite from one is no joke. Watching the three women bustle about, openly showing their concern, Bai Bao stood to one side, secretly giving a thumbs up in his heart. This kid really is something else. If any family around here got divorced, wouldn't it end up in total chaos, with both sides never speaking to each other again? But Zhang Xiangyang was different. His three ex-wives, though divorced, still hadn't left the household, and they even got along like real sisters. Most importantly, it was obvious that all three women still held him in the very center of their hearts. If my Taijun had even half of this kid's character, I could close my eyes right now and feel at peace. Bai Bao sighed to himself, gave a few more instructions, then turned and left.